Right, good afternoon and welcome to today's meeting of the Audit and Risk Management Determination Sub Committee. Welcome also to those members of the public press accessing the meeting via live stream to YouTube. I'm Councillor Maureen Davis and I'm chairing today's meeting. Minutes will be produced in the usual way and a recording of the meeting will be available on YouTube until such time as the minutes are produced. I'd like to remind members and officers that only audio from the microphones will be captured on live stream. Therefore, when speaking, please ensure your microphones are switched on and switch them off when you have finished speaking. Please ensure that mobile phones are on silent or turned off. I'll begin with agenda item 1 and call upon member services to report apologies for absence, please.
So we've had apologies from Councillor Unit. Thank you.
Agenda item 2 is to confirm and sign the minutes on pages 3 to 6 of the agenda pack from the meeting of 6th of June as being a correct record of that part of the meeting which took place in public. Do I have a proposer for the minutes? Jem French, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Jason Mockett, thank you. Does any member have any comments to make on these minutes? No, thank you. Can I have a show of hands to approve? Sorry, beg your pardon.
I was not in attendance at that meeting, but I did put my apologies in. It doesn't show that I apologise for that.
Okay, Linda, can we amend that? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I have a show of hands to approve the minutes then, please? Thank you. Right. Those then, thank you. Agenda item 3, to report additional items for consideration which the chairman deems urgent by virtue of special circumstances to be specified. There are none, thank you. Agenda item number 4 is to receive any declarations of interest under the local code of conduct in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, can you please raise your hand? No hands are raised, thank you. In respect of agenda item 5, I shall now pass over to Sam Anthony, Head of HR, to present the revised drugs and alcohol at work policy. She will also be able to provide responses to any service-specific questions that the committee might have. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Chair. So the council has recently reviewed and updated its existing alcohol and drugs at work policy, which was first implemented and approved by this committee in 2019. The policy itself relates to the misuse of alcohol and drugs at work, which might have an impact or a detrimental impact on the business and the confidence of our customers in the safety of the services that we provide. I don't propose with your permission, Chair, to go through the policy verbatim, just to highlight the changes and the review elements to the policy. So we have added the additional on-site testing, which was fingerprint testing, to be carried out in the first instance where there is a with cause test. So this is using an organisation called digital fingerprinting, where we actually test the individual's fingerprints and it will give us an immediate positive or negative test. If there's an immediate positive test, it then allows us to take that to the laboratory and then take the necessary action in line with the rest of the policy. The other addition is having testing for relevant post holders on day 1 of their employment. What I will do is just draw your attention to the specific elements in the policy where the changes have taken place. So that's on page 14 of your agenda, sorry, your agenda pack. So in relation to digital fingerprinting, employees will be asked to provide a fingerprint sample for each finger and that will analyse their fingerprint sweat to establish if a substance is detected. And as I said, if there's a positive test, we then refer it to the lab and take the necessary action. And the other elements of the policy is where they are safety critical roles, and we will undertake that testing on day one of the individual's employment. There's been a consultation for these amendments with the management team, with the workforce, and with the Unison and MTSP group. It has been quite a lengthy consultation actually, but it's now being recommended to this group for your consideration and approval. That's it from me, Chair.
Thank you, Sam. Can I have a proposer for the report, please? Councillor Jan French, thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Benny. Thank you. This item is now open for debate. Councillor French.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is actually quite concerning. It's only 2.5 years since this policy was introduced. The vibes I'm getting, has there been a serious problem with alcohol and drugs?
If I may respond to that,
Chair?
Chair. We have actually only tested 10 members of staff in that intervening period. And the reason there's been a review of this is based on productivity. To be honest with you, Councillor French, where there has been with cause issues and we've tested an individual, they have been removed from the workplace and it's taken up to 2 to 2.5 hours for the testing company to come out. And specifically where that individual is delivering a service, we've had to take them away from their job for up to 2.5 hours while that testing process is undertaken. So with the management team, we've undertaken this review to see if we can have an interim stage so we can, where there's a negative test, we can get the individual back to work immediately. So if there isn't a serious problem, there is an underlying testing of about 10 staff, as I've said. But this is why we've undertaken a review of the policy.
Councillor Benny.
Yeah. Question for Sam. If we tested 10 people in 3 years, it doesn't look like it's policy that we're chasing up to ensure that we've got a workforce that is not working under the influence of alcohol and drink. But which one thing in this I do support is to work with them to help them get over this, because we're not. This shouldn't be used as a sledgehammer to crack a nut and get rid of people. This should be something, if we've got a problem, the sooner it's found out, the better it is for the person concerned. But something I've noticed that is not in the report is random testing. And I think we've got this policy, and this is something that we should do on a far more regular basis. If we were running a haulage business, this would be done daily. I know we're not everybody is driving lorries and that depend on the district council, but again, it affects performance, and it's something that I feel would, if we have people that are using drugs or turning up for work under the influence of alcohol, that's not good for us and that's not good for them. So getting them some help would be the best thing that we could do. Is there any proposal, it's not obviously listed within this proposal, to bring in random checks? Most businesses do this, and I think it's a very fair thing to do. Or has that been something that's been taken out through the consultation period?
Thank you, Councillor Benny. If I may, Chair. It's a very good point. In answer to your first point about supporting staff, when we first implemented the policy, we had a 12-week period where, before we actually enforced the policy, anyone with a particular issue or that was a particular user of drugs or alcohol had the opportunity to come forward and receive support, and that will remain in place. So we have an occupational health service, we have quite a strong wellbeing programme, we have an employee assistance programme. So that commitment to our staff, where they come forward to indicate that they have an issue in terms of substance misuse, will continue. Your second point about random testing was actually part of our initial review of this policy, and we suggested the implementation of random testing for all parts of the workforce. As I alluded to earlier, this consultation has been quite lengthy, and it was the very strong steer from our Unison group that they didn't want to have random testing. They were very much against it at this point in time. So we are taking forward the review to not include it at this point in time.
Councillor Mockett.
To follow up from that point, obviously the council work in waste. The waste industry has highest recorded deaths across all sectors. I feel it should be compulsory that we randomly drug and alcohol test these people. We have to do it. We have no choice. I get done once a week from what site I'm on and where I am. Our workers get done every week. We do have a full policy, like you said, to offer support. But I think in an industry where there's more deaths occurring than any other, I think it'd be crazy not to. And we should be doing it. But that's just my opinion.
Councillor French.
Thank you. Can I ask why the unions were against this?
If I may respond to that, it's just a national stance that Unison have about random testing. They won't support it in any organisation.
Can I ask a question? This is obviously part of a rolling review of policies, and this one's come to the fore now. So I assume that's why we're looking at it now. And now's the opportunity to actually put in the fingerprint testing and start on the ladder of, we start softly and it gets, hopefully at some time, it may be that the union won't be quite so strong about random testing. And the other point is other councils. Do we have a steer from what others are doing?
Yes, that's a very good question, Chair. And we did actually do a large piece of research with neighbouring authorities and other organisations that have this public sector, I should add, and they don't do random testing. That's not to say we won't consider it in the future, but I think you're quite right, Chair, in that it's the step forward is digital fingerprinting and making sure we test on day one of employment because people shouldn't be turning up work under the influence.
Councillor French.
Yeah, so I'm assuming either line managers or colleagues actually bring this to your attention in the first place.
Yes,
How else would you find out about it?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Councillor French. So it's the various reports we had might be from work colleagues, they might be from the manager. We've also had complaints from members of the public or comments from the public. So when there's any concern for with cause, we will instigate the testing process.
Councillor Benning.
The 10 tests that we've done in the last 3 years, how many of those were negative and positive, and what support did we give to the staff who were positive, if any of the tests were positive?
10 tests, 4 positive results. Support was offered to the 4 individuals. Obviously that means that 6 were negative. And there was a process that obviously it was referred to the council's disciplinary process at the same time. So those 4 individuals don't work for the council anymore.
I think not having random testing in here, I can see where the unions have stepped in and said no, but it doesn't protect the people that need protection and people that need help. And I would not want to see this policy used as a hammer to beat people down. It should be there to support people and help people. And I think it also puts managers in a bit of a position where they've got to make the decision to call this in, and they have to work with the staff that they've called this in, and that could cause conflict. I think random testing would be a better way of doing this because it's not specific, it's not targeted, which if you've got a manager that's bringing something forward or bringing a member of staff forward for testing, that could be interpreted as victimization. And I think that is unfair on the managers to put them in that position where if we had random testing, that would be everyone comes to work one day and on Thursday the 3rd, we have the drug testing people come in and they test everybody. It's random. It takes the pressure off the managers to deal with that. And I think it would make for better working relations if we had random testing rather than targeted testing, which is what we've got. And I don't for 1 minute think this would be happening here, but that could be used as a form of bullying to pick on somebody as an individual if they had a manager who suspected this. And I think that not having random testing causes more problems than it saves.
Sam, do you want to answer that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I could just kind of respond, I think that's a very good point, Councillor Benny, and perhaps it might be prudent to make a recommendation that there's a review of 6 months of the policy, if the committee minds to approve it, with a look to bringing back the conversation about random testing with the Unison Group. But that's perhaps one for the committee to consider.
Councillor Mockett?
Can I ask why, if it's alcohol related and it's a non-negative, they're immediately suspended, which obviously should be, but it says near when it's drugs, it's not. So why and how do you differentiate between the two? Because drugs and alcohol, to me, have both got the same serious level of abuse, and yet clearly says in here for drug consumption, you will consider giving them paid leave or temporary allocation elsewhere.
Oh.
So what's your thought process beyond that?
Could you just direct me to the part of the policy
Yeah,
you're referring to?
5.2 non-negative results.
What page is that on?
What page number?
Oh, sorry, I'm on,
Page 18, isn't it? Is that right?
yeah, 5.2 non-negative results, the employee. Yeah, that's why I go off the the points, because the pages all seem mixed up.
Yes, Councillor, you're quite right. It would be my expectation that suspension is considered. If I might just say that from an employment law perspective, we don't automatically suspend because that can cause issues, but we make sure they are removed from duty. But I would like to amend that element of the policy to reflect the same as alcohol.
Thank you.
Councillor French?
Yeah, I agree with most of what Councillor Penny said. Obviously, you had 4 positives, and they don't any longer work for the authority. But you've got 6, so assuming whether it was a manager or colleague, are you aware of that has caused conflict or bad feeling with how it was reported, and the obviously 6 people who were negative? What kind of knock-on effect has that had within their departments?
That's a very good question, Councillor French. And my understanding is there hasn't been any impact, but then I haven't actually spoken to those individuals directly afterwards to ask the impact. I think it should be noted that those individuals, as I said, are removed from duty, and they are they have to sit and wait, and that's not a pleasant situation for any of them. So the concept of having that immediate testing to indicate a positive or negative result would be helpful for those individuals in that first instance. But I can't really answer it because I didn't speak to them myself, Councillor French.
If I may come back, Madam Chairman, yeah, I think it's important that people who have been reported and are negative, that they certainly have some kind of counselling, because I would think they must feel absolutely awful.
And to come back, Councillor French, we provide free counselling through our employee assistance programme, but I think that's an area that can be reiterated when we launch the revised policy, if committee are minded to approve it today.
Right, Councillor Benny?
Another question for you, Sam. Sorry, you're the only person to have questions, so it's all to you. When we've had a positive or a negative, also when somebody has been for testing, whether it's positive or negative, do HR follow that up with a bit of a debrief to find out how their thoughts on it? Because if they have a negative, because if they have a negative test, we haven't got any feedback. They really should have the opportunity to say, I feel this was maybe bullying, unfair, and there has to be reasons for this. You can't just get a manager to pick on somebody, for want of a better word, although I don't think it would be picking, but there has to be good reasons as to why somebody would want to do this. To have a policy that doesn't have enough teeth to make it work to get to the root of the problem, the policy becomes ineffective. And I think maybe if somebody from HR followed up the testing to find out how that was, and that should be followed up as well.
Councillor Benny, I think that's a really good point. To date, we have provided the pastoral care element, if you like, has been left to the manager. and the service manager, but I think your point is very valid, that follow-up should be from an objective service like HR. And I also think that you're quite right. If an individual is presenting and their behaviour is different, so much so the manager believes there's a with cause test that's necessary and the test is negative, it could well be that there are other issues at play that we need to be aware of, and so that conversation needs to be had with a member of the HR team. So I think that's a really good suggestion.
Councillor French.
Yeah, to pick up on what Sam has just said, this is concerning if a manager has reported that person and they're found negative, and then the manager deals with that person. That could be a conflict, that could cause bad feelings, and we don't know, that manager could be a bully. So I don't think if an individual has reported that person, I don't think it should be the same person that actually does the follow-up. It should be somebody totally separate, because you do have an element of bullying right across whatever industry.
Are there any further questions on this report? No, thank you. Right, before, let's sum up, I think, because there's been a few little changes. So we are going to say that we note the report and we will approve the revised policy, but it should include revision to 5.2 to include positive drug results and immediate suspension. We will come back and look at this report again in 6 months. And we possibly will, it's with a view to consider the inclusion of random testing. And the other change is that any positive results will be followed up by HR and not managers of departments. Any test, yeah. Any testing process. So is everyone happy with that?
Thanks, Madam Chairman. I still think there needs to be something in there that the individual who reports it should not be the person who speaks to them. So I would like some kind of wording in there so that it is a separate individual, that whether it's counselling or just having a chat with them. But I don't think it should be the person who's actually, whether it's line manager, colleague, whatever.
I think that's fine, and I think Sam can do that. Would it be possible, although we're approving it now, that actually when you've done the revised wording, could you circulate it to the committee again? Yeah, thank you.
I don't think we need the whole document, just highlight. Yeah.
Formally raise our hands so that it's clear for Linda. Thank you. In relation to the remaining agenda items, members are asked to determine whether they contain information considered in accordance with paragraph 1 of Schedule 12A, Part 1 of the Local Government Act 1972, should be exempt and the press and public be excluded from the meeting, or whether the public interest in disclosing this information outweighs the public interest in maintaining the exemption. Can I ask any member who does not agree with the proposal to exclude the press and public for the discussion of the rest of this agenda? Can they signal now, please? No, thank you. We will then cut the live stream. Thank you.